Hi, word nerds. We are at our next sentence surgeon. I still have a little bit of a scratchy voice, I'm sorry, but it's getting a little bit better now. But this is from the book that we read today, actually, called Pompeii, Lost and Found. I'm going to read out the sentence that says, they've found the ruins of many buildings, as well as thousands of everyday objects. If we look at the punctuation at the end of the sentence, it's a period. So we have to decide, okay, is this giving a command to somebody, telling them to do something, or is this just saying something basic? It's just saying something basic. So the type of sentence is, once again, we're back to declarative. And now I'm going to go through the sentence and I'm going to try to find nouns, which are people, places, or things. So I'm going through, they have, okay, well, I know that's a contraction. We're going to kind of head back to that in a second. So we're going to skip it for a second. Found the ruins. Ooh, ruins are a thing. So specifically it has an S on the end, so it is a plural noun. So that means that there's more than one ruin. It's not just one ruin. Ruins of many buildings. Buildings are a thing. Also plural because of the S in the end, so plural noun. As well as thousands of everyday objects. Objects are also a thing with an S on the end, so plural noun. 3 plural nouns. Okay, so let's look for verbs. Verbs are the action. So they've found. Ooh, find is an action that you can do. Found is just a different tense of it. So we're going to say this is a verb. The ruins of many buildings as well as thousands of everyday objects. Okay, that's it. As far as actions go, sort of. We'll get back to that in a minute. All right, describing words. So we're finding describing words. Those can either be adjectives or adverbs, depending on whether or not that word is describing a noun or any other part of speech. So if it describes a noun, that's an adjective. If it's any other part of speech that it's describing, then that's going to be an adverb. Okay, so they've found the ruins of many what? Many buildings. Ooh, buildings is a noun. So many is describing buildings. So that is an adjective. Okay, as well as thousands of everyday objects. Thousands. Okay, you know what? Now that I thought about it, I never looked that one up. I kind of forgot. So we'll come back to that in a second. But, okay, thousands of. I'm thinking thousands, objects, thousands. I'm thinking it's describing the objects. So let's go with adjective. It's how many, which sometimes can be considered an adverb, but it's how many, and that's a noun. So I'm still going to go with adjective. Although it could be an adverb. I'm kind of debating that, but I don't have time to look it up in the middle of the video. I'm sorry, guys. All right, and then everyday objects. Everyday. What kind of objects? Everyday. So we're going to call that an adjective as well. All right, so the words we have left are they've, the, of, as well as, and of. Okay, I know that the is one of those short words called an article, a, an, or the. And then of, we've talked about a couple of times, is a preposition showing the positioning of one thing to another. Ruins to the buildings, and thousands to the objects. It's a little easier when the prepositions are a little more obvious, like above or below or something like that. All right, so we've got they've and as well as. Let's deal with they've first because that's a little easier. We notice that there's an apostrophe. That's one of our big focuses this week. That's why I chose this sentence. So this here is either going to show possession or it's going to show a contraction. So contractions, when you take two words and you smush them together, you pull them together, because tract is actually a root that means pull, and we'll learn that later in the year. And possessive shows that something belongs to something. So can they belong to have? Because this is they have? No. Or to found? No. So this is a contraction. Specifically of they and have, they and have. They is a pronoun because it replaces the name of whoever these the they is. And then v stands for have, which is a accompanying or helping, assisting this verb. So it's another verb. Have is a verb. So contraction for pronoun and a verb. They have. All right, so that leaves as well as. So I actually looked this up because I was like, okay, well, do we focus on as well and as? But then I found something really interesting that the internet said. The internet said, and this makes so much sense. You notice how there's a comma here? And then there's this thing. And this phrase is actually linking this sentence to this phrase. So we've got this sentence to this phrase. So what do you remember it's called when there's a comma and then that specific word joins together a sentence to another piece? That's called a conjunction. And I've never known of a phrase as being a conjunction before, but that's what the internet said. The internet said the phrase as well as is a conjunction. It's almost like and, almost. You could almost replace the word and for this. So that hint is right here. Okay, so let's look at this. We've got a conjunction, which means it's either going to be compound or complex usually. Not always, but in this case it definitely is because it's a longer sentence. So they've found the ruins of many buildings. That makes sense by itself. We don't know who the they is, but the rest of it makes sense. They've found the ruins of many buildings. Can I say thousands of everyday objects by itself? No, I can't. I need this part of the sentence for this other part to make sense. So this section, this clause, depends on the rest of this. So that means because this depends on the other part of the sentence, that means this is a complex sentence. This is the first time we've ever really talked about this. We're going to talk about it more in like another week or two, I promise. But hopefully you can see that, okay, thousands of everyday objects, that cannot be by itself. You can't just say, I can't walk up to Miss D. Simone and say, thousands of everyday objects. She's going to be like, thousands of everyday objects, what? She's going to want to know more. But I could say, they found the ruins of many buildings. And she's like, oh, cool, who's they? And that'll make sense to her after I let her know who the they is. So that's complex. All right, we're almost done, I promise. I know it's a longer video than you guys are used to lately. All right, so subject and predicate. Predicate is going to be the action, which is the verb. We only have one verb in this entire sentence, which is found. So the subject is who is doing the action. So who's found? They found. Specifically, they have found. So technically, let's say they. And then we're going to put in the continued predicate down here, the. They've found. Because the have found, that kind of goes more together. I know it's a little confusing. This is a little trickier of a sentence, but I think it was really informative. We learned a lot of stuff with this one. All right, guys, have a great afternoon.